Happens to me every time I get up off. I'm ready whenever you are. I said it happens to me every time. People call me right before I'm trying to get on, but I'm ready when you are. As soon as we're done paying the bills, let me know and I'll get on. Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Plate. As always, I'm your host, Nick Sakalis, coming to you live from the WGBB studios here in lovely Merrick, New York. And as of last week, we actually have an office here in Merrick. So it could be easy for me in the future to be able to zoom in from our local office and not have to run through traffic coming back from the North Shore. We'll see how that's going to go. And I'll get into a little bit more about that merger a little bit in the show. In case anybody wants to call in, the line here is 516-623-1240, 516-623-1240. And as always, I'll be watching everything that's coming in through the live chat here on the YouTube stream and answering questions as they are coming in. Hope everybody had a great week, had a great Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day once more. I think I said it last week, but just in case I didn't, I'm going to say it again late. I know I got to enjoy it. I took a good portion of that day to spend it with the family. It's one of those few days where we could get away with saying to people that can't take that appointment, or I'm sorry, we can't do a showing at that time because obviously people are celebrating Mother's Day. So it's one of those few holidays that people are respectful enough to actually allow us that opportunity. But there's been a lot more. What's that? I took my vaccine shot on Mother's Day. Did you? On a Sunday, huh? How you feeling? I'm good. Was your first shot? Which one? Pfizer or? Pfizer. Well, you look good. I have no problem. No nothing. You still have your color? I just had a little sore on the arm, but it's all gone now. I took a couple of Tylenol, and I'm doing great. You still have your color. You haven't turned white, so no negative effects, right? Would have been a world record, and I could make some money. I turned myself white, right? We keep joking around, but we're still in the experimental phase with these vaccines. You never know what happens. Yeah, I guess just about everybody in my church, we got about close to 200 people, and just about all of that. I'm going to finish this first and second shot. And the thing is, if you're going to be in an environment where you're going to be with a lot of people, you got to take it. You don't know. You don't know. And the thing is that there's so many people out there that have taken the vaccines, they still could be carriers. Yeah. So if you haven't taken it, and you'll be next to the person that took it, they could give you the virus. So yeah, we got to be careful. That's all. Yeah. I'm glad to see you're, in your good complexion. You're not green. You're not purple. My daughters, right? They don't really particularly care about taking it anyway. They keep saying, well, I'm not worried about it because my family got good genes. They're really, okay. But they ain't going to take it. But, listen, I have to deal with a lot of people every day, and in churches and my other job. So I come in contact with, and everybody doesn't play the same rules. It's the same thing they say, with that mask help. This flu, because the flu season, a lot of people didn't get no flu this year because of that mask. Yeah.
keep all that germs away. So, if you don't get the coronavirus, you get the flu, and that thing's just as bad. It kills you just as bad as anything else.
Well, have you ever taken the flu virus? The flu vaccine?
No, never. I never had the flu in all my entire life. Never.
Never, huh? I never took it either. But I did hear horror stories from a lot of people
Oh, really?
that basically said that you know they they said that they had really bad effects when they took that shot. They got sick, seriously sick.
You talking about the second shot?
I'm talking about the regular flu
Oh yeah.
shot.
So, oh yeah, that shot makes you sick really bad. I heard people take it and it really sick.
And that's one of the things that always made me worried and cautious about the vaccine they came out with now.
Right, right.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what the right thing or the wrong thing is.
The funny thing about it, I didn't feel anything.
That's good.
Just like this, and I said, "You finished?" She said, "Yeah." I was okay.
That's definitely good. My wife, she was sore for days.
Oh yeah, some people do with their arm, but mine, but I took it. But so far, I haven't feel nothing. I took some Tylenol like that. That's why.
Well, I bet you before you know it, they're going to come out with a pill.
That would probably be much better.
I bet you that's going to happen. Once they finish cashing in on the shots, they're going to cash in on pills. They're going to have to take regularly, like almost like the cold and flu pills. You're going to get your corona pills. We'll see. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna theorize. I don't know what to say. But that being said, it's been a crazy few weeks right now. It really has. Feel that people are on high crazy still. Even though things are settling down a little bit, there's a lot of crazy up in the air still, and that's like in every single part of life. It's not just the real estate world.
This thing is working a little bit. Is the real estate gotten better, or isn't it? What I mean better is the sales much better? People are buying houses again, or what? You can show people around, or what?
Well, I'll give you an understanding of where we are at post Corona. Okay. Is there any way you could have your microphone come out in the speakers? That would help out because I don't know if it's catching to the audience.
You can hear me?
Oh yeah, I could hear you.
Okay.
Is it coming out the speakers too?
Yeah, so the speakers over here, those are the live stream. They can hear you.
Oh, okay, I got it. So I'll give you an idea of what's happening post Corona. Last year we had a major wipeout of all the inventory. In a panic from, I've talked about this in the past, where you had Escape from New York in the mindset of a lot of people. They want to get out of the city at all costs, willing to pay hand over fist on a lot of places, regardless if they found the value in it or not, just because they needed to find a way out. They wanted their backyard. They wanted to have their space. They didn't want to be in a tight apartment building where they had to share a hall with hundreds of other people. And I get it. It was fear. It was the media that caused that. It was the Cuomo's, the De Blasio's, with their ill-advised choices that scared the crap out of people. You had that whole senior situation with all these people clustered into these senior nursing homes. You had a lot of that happening. I'm not going to get into all the details of everything. Everybody knows the story of what happened last year. But there was a major exodus that wiped out the inventory that we had that was existing. And not only did we wipe out the inventory that was existing through the buyers, a lot of the sellers that either were on the market previously or were ready to put themselves on the market on, in the spring the way they normally did, put a pause on it. They pulled the brakes and decided not to put their house on the market, either for the short term or for the long term. They've changed their minds because you have a lot of people that are thinking, well, if I sell, where am I going to go now? Because there's no inventory out there. So that caused a uh, basic element of supply and demand. Economics 101. There's not enough supply for the demand. Now that fed over into this year. So we still don't have the supply levels in a lot of areas that we need. Don't get me wrong. In Manhattan, you can get as many apartments as you like. There's a different story altogether. It's in tales of two cities. And if you're buying at a commercial level, you got plenty of options out there. But when it comes to residential and it comes anywhere outside of the nucleus of Manhattan, the supply has not caught up yet. And because of that reason, you're seeing there's still being aggressive bidding war. I mean, we just had a situation about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. What am I saying? It was 2 weeks ago on last Sunday. Now, this past Sunday, last Sunday, we had a open house for a house that we had listed for 519 in Levittown. Okay, my team member Mark Handler was handling that. He had a couple more people with him, and expectations that we're going to have a lot of people. You know how many people came in to take a look at the house that day? 80 people. Yeah, 80 people. And there were a lot of people that didn't make it there that wanted to get in there after, and it turned into a major bidding war. And basically, it's just about wrapped up right now as far as putting the deal together. But it just gives you an example of an area. Oh, and by the way, the price is going way over asking price, way over asking price. So anybody that says that this media thing is pretend of the agents and the brokers saying that they are manipulating the public sentiment by like blowing things up, they're wrong. It's happening. It's happening every single day. If you're priced on target and you're in an area that has high demand, you are going to be selling very quickly and you're going to have a bidding war because people just need to get into that space. And
Is it politics now that a man can't just put a sign in front of the house and say, "Only for sale"? You have to go through the real estate, you have to advertise. I mean, they say it doesn't work like that anymore. You can just put a sign in,
well,
house for sale.
people still can put the house for sale on their own. They've always had that ability to do so. So, they have a lot more tools to be able to do that right now that they would have had 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Because back then, you put your sign on the lawn, you're depending on anybody that's going to drive in front of your house. You don't have that internet to help you and that kind of thing. There's paid platforms that for sale by owner you could do on your like by being able to uh, advertise and market your place. But the problem with that is, I typically sense. I mean, there's some people that are really on target, homeowners that are really on target. They know exactly what they're doing. They really don't need a lot of guidance, and they have the time on their hands to be able to market and sell their place correctly. And it's not always only about knowledge and education of how to do it. It's having the time on your hands as well. So when you're getting those endless calls that are coming in from people asking sometimes relevant, sometimes irrelevant questions, sometimes insane questions, sometimes very intelligent questions, you need to make yourself accessible as that seller to be able to answer them and be able to understand of how to properly sell the place without hurting yourself. Because one of the things that I see that a lot of sellers do that ends up hurting themselves is too much information, way too much information. They oversell. And that's a turnoff to some buyers sometimes. Just because you absolutely love the drapes that you put into that living room, and you paid $5,000 for them, whatever the case you paid, it's some crazy number. Doesn't mean that the buyer is interested in your drapes, and you should spend a half an hour talking about them when you should be focusing on the house itself. And that's one of the problems that you see from a lot of sellers, that they tend to not really understand what brings true value to the buyers and how to truly sell the house and maximize it. And a lot of times they dwell on trivial things that end up hurting them down the line as far as maximizing their value and getting the most amount of money for it. And that's why I always recommend hiring somebody to be that middle point. And the other thing, there's one other thing that I'm going to say about that is sometimes buyers are not polite. Sometimes buyers might say something that you might find offensive as a seller. Sometimes they might rub you the wrong way. Sometimes you look at a person trying to buy your house and you just don't like their face for some reason. They give you a look that you don't like as a seller. I don't want them to buy my house. Look at them. You know, they just call my dog ugly. These are crazy things I'm talking about. Or you might have a buyer that hates pets, and you have 10 cats, and they say something about them, and you take offense as a seller. Now you don't want to sell the place out of spite. Or you start driving the price up because you don't like that person because they offended your 10 cats. That's what you do by hiring a real estate professional. You avoid that. You bring that mediator, basically, that as a broker, as an agent, I'm many times in the position to have a thick skin.
It's oversensitive, right? And sometimes if you really want to sell something, you have to deal with the people that come.
Yeah, I mean, you don't like the color of the tiles in the bathroom,
Right.
no problem. I, it's on you, you know. And obviously, there's other options. People could change the tiles. They could do whatever they want to do. But a seller might say, "I hand placed those myself. I took 3 weeks to do that bathroom all by myself, and you don't like it." You get what I'm saying? There's a personal element. You need to have it removed because a lot of times the pride that it gets in the way of putting a real good deal. And a lot of times, what a big mistake is that I see often is a lot of sellers get caught up on the price itself. How much am I selling it for? And they'll take a higher number and completely get screwed on the terms. And the terms are just as important as the sale itself. Because if you have a contract that's in place with poor terms and you have the top dollar price, that might and those terms are all working against you. You might as well have a significant lower number in place because it doesn't help you in any way. You don't know if that deal is going to close because of the poor terms that you put together. You don't know if you put enough penalties and accountability on the buyer's end to complete that purchase because you accepted those poor terms. There's a lot of things that like if you sold multiple houses in your lifetime. I tell this to people all the time, especially if it's a holiday. If you sold multiple houses, you're comfortable, you know the process, you're you're pretty savvy. Go for it. Sell it yourself. Why are you going to pay commission if you don't have to? But if you're selling a house every 10, 20 years, not such a great idea. It really isn't. It really isn't a great idea because it usually ends up costing you money down the line. You know, and a lot of sellers have that "I want this much just because" mentality. Just because what? Because I think it's worth that much. Also, your opinion, you think it's worth that much versus what the actual facts of what other houses in a similar category are selling for means nothing. And I get a lot of for sale by owners that do that as well.
Do your house go to prices according to your, the look of your neighbor's house? That's your house.
Absolutely. If your neighbor has a disgusting front lawn
Okay.
and they have a broken down jalopy on their lawn or a broken down boat just sitting there as an eyesore and their garage is falling apart or they have a shack that's halfway torn or the siding on their house is halfway torn, that takes a that really plays a huge factor into the sale of your house because they're on the same street. Because think of it like this: somebody that buys a house, theoretically, obviously people have their limitations on how much they could spend, but theoretically, they can fix things to make them look better on their home because they own the home. You can't do anything about your neighbor's house. And not only that, if your neighbor is not a nice person, you're not going to be able to really translate that to them.
Okay.
No, it takes offense. But even if a person's a nice person, they'll take offense anyway. Or what if that person just doesn't have the money to fix their place up and they just keep pasting it together with band-aids? You know, and if you have a great street and you just have one or two houses like that on the street, that's one thing. These are anomalies. It doesn't help you if that one or two houses are right next to you. But let's say you could. But if you go down the street and you see a good amount of the houses like that, that's a turn off. I guarantee you that affects the value of your house. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. Just like if you go into certain commercial areas and you see one building after another building with boarded windows, and you have a pristine building right in the middle of them. You're thinking to yourself, do I really want to invest in this area, or is my building gonna turn into the plywood building next door?
Good point.
So impressions matter. You know, curb appeal makes a big difference. Hello, driver's seat. Hey, I just spent $3,000 in legal fees to take my former tenant to court for my rent. Oh, Jesus. Here we go. Driver's seat. I don't know what to tell you. Your story is sounding so much like so many other landlords. And I wasn't going to go into this. I was going to try to stay away from this today. But, just like the Godfather said, just when I thought I was out, you pulled me back in. And it doesn't take a lot for me to get pulled into this whole, eviction situation, these housing laws. The fact that you're stuck paying $3,000 in legal fees and you're taking your tenant to court for your rent, and you may or may not get any of that rent back. Forget about your legal fees. I mean, seriously, now I'm thinking about this. I'm trying as much as I can to be calm and understand why this is happening. And honestly, I keep saying this over and over again. It's damn politics. It's about votes. I'm going to get into something right now, and I'm going to give a real scenario. And if there's any politicians out there, anybody that's a lawmaker, anybody that has any type of understanding of how the economy works and how the housing sector works, I'm going to lay it out for you so you can understand completely what the consequences are of what's happening right now. And this is coming from a person. Yes, I do have an extensive real estate background. I understand how the market works. I also am a landlord, so I understand how housing works as well. But you could be an economist to be able to appreciate what I'm about to say, and you could be a business owner to be able to understand how this can play out. Hell, you could even be a tenant from the other side of the equation and understand how this is going to play out. And I promise you, it's not going to play out well for any parties. This goes for the landlords, It goes for the investors. It goes for the tenants. It goes for the city. It goes for the state. It goes for the government. This is going to be a failure all across the board. And I'm going to explain to you why. First, let me take a sip of this coffee. Okay. So let's think about this. You put an eviction moratorium for well over a year in place. You're cut off the pipelines of any income to come into a fairly significant sector of the economy. Now, in addition to doing that, you also halted any previous actions that were taken to this quarantine lockdown that we had in declaration of a pandemic, which stopped another significant portion of funds from coming in. So how is that going to work for you? You're not getting any income coming in from that sector. You're making it as impossible as humanly impossible to collect any kind of income on these properties. You gave a big group of tenants a temporary get out of jail free card. The income that is not being collected right now also is income that is not being taxed right now. So yeah, the city, the state, the government, they're going into deficits of historical points right now. And what's happening? They're going in deeper and deeper and deeper because not only are they not collecting any type of funds from income on these lost rents, but they're also dishing out mindless money. Money that should be going back. If the government was smart, they'd be taking the money out of one pocket and ensuring that it's going to come back into their other pocket. And how are you going to do that? Instead of giving rent relief programs that are going straight to the tenants and that are not paying the rent regardless, to make a direct source to go into the landlords, which will then be able to pay their expenses, pay their taxes, and bring that money back into the government's other pocket. We got about $2.4 billion that are allocated to New York. You know how difficult it is for any landlord to be able to get any money from these programs? First of all, we don't even have proper programs in place, and it's not even clear of how to be able to get any of this money. It's a ridiculous situation. You want me to compound this? What's happening to all these landlords that are compiling bills and putting together debt of epic proportions on their properties right now? And in some case where they're guaranteed the building under their own name and the mortgage under their own name, it's falling on them. How's that going to be accounted for? What are you going to do? You're gonna make a big flood of foreclosures on these properties? Is that your solution? You're going to hurt a big group of people that did nothing wrong to gift and help a group of people that are obviously taking advantage of the system? Is that what's happening? I'm going to say something else. I've said this before, and I'm being truthful and transparent. It's not all the tenants that are like this. Granted, it's a smaller portion of the tenants that are doing this and manipulating the system. But, they're significant enough to do the damage. Oh, and by the way, they've also spread and infected good tenants to do the same things that normally wouldn't do. Why? Because they feel they have that get out of jail free card. Think I'm wrong? You let this play out. You let this play out over the next 2, 3 years, and 2, 3 years, we're going to be feeling the consequences and the financial ramifications of what is happening today and over this past year for the next decade, at the minimum. And we might be in territory where it might not be salvageable. It might be one of these things that are endless, bottomless pit that money just is going to keep getting thrown into over and over again in order to repair because of all the debt and all the back expenses that need to be taken care of. You think I'm wrong? Call me out on it. I hope I'm wrong. I really, really hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm an alarmist. I hope I'm a pessimist, and I'm saying the worst things out of everything. But I am not. This I assure you, I am not wrong in any way. We're going down a very, very dangerous road, and the people that are making the laws, the officials that are playing games with people's lives, are gonna get away with it. Why? Because they're government employees, they're city employees. They get their salaries, they get their benefits. When their terms are up, when it's time for De Blasio, maybe not Cuomo, because Cuomo's got his other problems, but these politicians, their terms are going to end. They're going to walk away, maybe write a book or two, maybe even get an Emmy the way Cuomo did, and they're not going to be held accountable for what they did. Maybe history will look at them in a negative way, but at that point, they're not going to care because they're going to be getting their pensions, they're going to be getting whatever they want to get. We're talking about serious, serious stuff. Esbar, you absolutely right. The longer it lasts, the more embedded other people will take advantage. Houses won't be maintained the same way. Everything is going to band-aid until foreclosure. Look at upstate, the appraisals will go down, equals the less tax revenue. I'm glad that you jumped on that, Esbar, and thank you for joining the chat. Um, I'm gonna give you an assessment of exactly what's gonna happen to all these properties. Just give me 1 second to gather my thoughts right now. And I also want to remind everybody that we are still doing that fundraiser for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I do have the link at the top of the live chat. If you click on it, it'll take you straight to the site. You can make a donation as little as a quarter if you want. Every dollar, every quarter, every cent matters to help these children that are um, being hurt right now from this cancer, and you're doing a positive thing for people that are really in need. Uh, again, and anything that comes in through the super chat, I'm going to be putting all the proceeds directly to um, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society as well. So you have multiple ways to be able to. We also have a Facebook page that's dedicated to this as well. But again, this is whatever anybody could do if they can. I understand everybody's hurting right now and don't have the ability to be able to spare, even if it's a couple of cents. But every single penny would definitely be appreciated. But let me not get sidetracked with this right now. Now, Esbar mentioned that the houses won't be maintained the same way, and it's going to be band-aid until foreclosure. Okay. Let me lay this out exactly what's going to fall in place. Now, because Esbar is another New Yorker, and they can appreciate what I'm going to have to say to this. This problem started well before this quarantine happened. This problem started, well, we've had an ongoing problem in New York for quite some time as far as housing laws being lopsided. But the tables truly had turned in June 2019 with the new Housing Reform Act, which gave a lot of rights away and a lot of possibilities for a landlord to be able to conduct themselves and run the buildings or the properties as a business as it should be. They took them completely away and made the housing laws so lopsided that it turned New York into the harshest housing law environments for landlords throughout the United States. And I can say that with confidence. California's pretty bad, but they're not as bad as we are. So we're looking at a situation where this was already brewing. We had already situations happening. We had a tough environment to work under. Add this quarantine to the mix, this income stoppage. I guess that's the best way to be able to say it. And now we have a situation where there's just no more money. And even the people, the landlords that do have reserves left after this long process, are not necessarily spending the money that they normally would on a building. I could tell you just from my own personal point, anything I could do myself through any rental property that I own, I will do it myself. I will cut corners. I would, instead of hiring somebody else, if it's a job that I am in position to be able to do, and I don't need a certification or license in order to do it, I am going to do it. Why? Because I can't afford to keep paying people to do jobs that I will never be compensated on. These people, these professionals that provide these services, they don't work for free. The attorney that driver's seat had to pay $3,000 for legal fees, he's not working for free. She's not working for free. What do you think? How do you think the world works? Nobody's working for free. They're not giving uh, handouts, but yet landlords are expected to work for free. And if I hear one person that turns around and says landlording, being a housing provider is not real work, I'm gonna lose my mind. Because you step into those shoes of a landlord and a housing provider for 24 hours, 48 hours, and you tell me if it's not real work or not. When you get those 4 a.m. phone calls about your clogged toilets, and you have to run immediately because the heating is not working. I'll tell you if it's real work or not. And when you can't get a professional to come and clean out a space, and you're taking out a ton of garbage from a tenant that used to be a hoarder that just decided to abandon all this crap in your apartment, and you got to go up 4 flights of stairs and empty out that whole place by yourself, or maybe hire a couple people to help you. Is that not real work? I think it's all real work. It's say we made one family in two-family house. Don't pay since 2019. Destroying property and not communicate. Don't know what to do. You're in the same place as a lot of other people. So we made. I know what you're saying. I got a couple of similar situations myself. I got a situation where I got a person terrorizing the other tenants. scaring the crap out of them. Decided to bring in somebody that she wants as a boyfriend that's an ex-convict that we never put into the place. That's really threatening people. Destroy our surveillance systems. I'm not even, I don't really talk about my own personal situations that much because I don't want to harp on it. I don't want to make it about me because the truth is, this show is about the real estate community in the world. But I could tell you stories that will make your hair stand. I could tell you stories that will make you cringe and say, what is going on? You see my aggravation right now. This is not aggravation just because I just want to get a rise out of people and get people to freak out. This is because I'm living this the same way everybody that's listening to me is. This is because I'm feeling the same kind of weight, the same kind of pressure. I'm dealing with the same kind of class discrimination that every other landlord's dealing with. And by the way, I said this before, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to keep saying it. I'm holding a lot of you realtors out there, real estate agents out there, brokers, accountable for not opening your mouths up and helping the housing community. It's good for you when you're selling these people's buildings, right? It's good for you when you're leasing out the spaces for them, right? And they're paying you. But you don't want to open up your mouth because you don't want to rub some tenants that are cancel rent type of movement people. You don't want to ruffle their feathers, right? At the end of the day, let's see who's the one that ends up paying your bills, that pays your commissions, because it's not them. After those 2019 laws, real estate agents are not really getting compensated well from tenants and from rentals. So you keep being quiet. You keep doing nothing about it. And at the end of the day, I promise you, the landlords, they're going to take that into account on who they hire and who they feel is truly their ally and somebody they could add onto the team that's going to look for their best benefit when they're selling their places and when they're leasing their places. So again, I'm holding you out. I'm calling you out on it. You don't want to listen? Don't listen. Time will tell how you're going to be reflected and looked at. And I'll tell you something, the landlord and the investment community out there has a lot to say as far as the real estate market is concerned. So, going back to what I was saying in regards to the way this market's shifting and the way the consequences are going to really, really play out are, here's the thing. Landlords that don't have money and can't get loans anymore and have already loaded their credit cards to the max are not going to be able to do the repairs necessary. Their places are going to become decrepit. It's going to be an awful type of living situation for tenants, and they could call 311 all they want. They could hit the place with as many penalties and violations all they want. But if there's no money, there's no money. So if there's no money to make repairs, there's no money to pay violations and penalties. Simple as that. So all they're going to really do is basically put these people into complete default where they're going to end up selling at a discounted rate because of all the issues they're having. Or they're going to get foreclosed on. And somebody else that's going to buy this as an investment is going to take over the place, clean it up, and basically put their own rules and regulations in the house, in the building. And if it's a big corporation, if it's a big company, management company that's taking over those properties, I guarantee you they're not going to be as nice and they're not going to be as tolerant as a little mom and pop landlord that lost their building. It's all going to be about the numbers with them. They're not going to care about names. They're not going to pay faces. They're not going to care about families. It's all going to be about the numbers with them. And good luck dealing with them. You're going to have a much more straight, black and white relationship with them. There's not going to be like, Nick, I need a couple more days. I have a little bit of problem. My daughter just had to go get braces, whatever the case is. Can you please help me out? There's not going to be any of that. There's not going to be any leniency. I want my rent. That's what you're going to hear from a management company. Oh, you can't pay the rent? Here's a nice late fee for you. Oh, you don't want to pay the late fee either? Send them to housing court. And they're like a machine. And they get the funds to be able to execute quickly. So good luck. I'd love to see that happen in a lot of cases. Not that I love to see the landlords lose the place, but I love to see the reaction of a lot of these